You know, I've been a journalist for over 50 years. It's difficult to believe, but I came to Chicago from a little town in Tennessee called Paris for one purpose, and that was to write for the Chicago Defender. When I came here in 1946 and was employed at 3435 South Indiana, a big day in my life, June 1946.
Vernon Jarrett is one of the nation's foremost newspaper, television, and radio commentators on race relations, politics, urban affairs, and African American history. He is a senior fellow at the Great Cities Institute of the University of Illinois at Chicago, president of the Chicago chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, and, as he has been throughout his career, a featured columnist for the Chicago Daily Defender.
I've interviewed some of the greatest living Americans. Percy Julian spent 2 hours over 50 years ago interviewing Du Bois. I've interviewed Paul Robeson and A. Philip Randolph. The best interview I think I had was with Dr. Benjamin E. Mays on the occasion of his 81st birthday that week. And I spent several hours in his home taping him. I couldn't afford a tape when I interviewed those other gentlemen, but...
In 2001, the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences presented Vernon Jarrett its Silver Circle Award for his 30 years of contributions to Sirius television. Mr. Jarrett also founded the NAACP AXO program in 1977. He was the first African-American syndicated open columnist for the Chicago Tribune, a columnist and member of the editorial board of the Chicago Sun-Times, and has been a guest on ABC TV's Nightline with Ted Koppel, the NBC Evening News with Dan Rather, NBC's Meet the Press, 60 Minutes on CBS, and the list goes on. Jarrett credits his parents and grandparents with laying the foundation for his future. They were teachers, and they taught him the importance of reading.
My mother and father were the children of slaves, and we had a great family tradition. My dad was self-stimulated to get an education, and he passed it on to my brother, and he passed it on to me. My mother had the same experience. They were small-town school teachers. They put in a total of 105 years in the classrooms of Western Tennessee, collectively. My grandfather used to make my brother read to him from the front to the back of the Chicago Defender, including the advertisements. I'll never forget that old man. I was so happy that I couldn't read, I didn't know what to do. Old man George Jarrett. I came from a generation of older people who were meticulous in their care for their children. And I tried to do the best I could to emulate them with my own sons, Tommy and Bobby. My late son, Bobby, was a doctor, and he was a reader. Tommy is a reader.
Almost everyone would agree that I haven't come close to measuring up to my father's standards, and very few people have. He's set a precedent as a journalist, as a historian, as a community activist, that would be hard for anybody to match, let alone me, and I don't try. I developed an interest in photography and the arts at a very young age, and I loved it. And so I spent 6 years in art school, and as a byproduct of that, looking for a summer job, I went to WLS using the background that I had in photography and art. I used those communication skills that I had developed over the years from combined interests. And that's what got me at Channel 7. And so I've been there for 24 years in various capacities, covered several presidential elections for WLS, the Olympics. Went to El Salvador, Nicaragua, with Jay Levine.
One of the biggest thrills I ever got, I don't know whether I ever told him about it, was, I think, in the early 1970s. I did a television show for 30 years at ABC WLS TV. And one time I was sitting there waiting for the cameraman to get started. And I looked behind this camera and there was a great big natural sticking out from that camera. I said, who is that? I said, it looks like my son's natural. I got up to see who it was. There was my son, who on his own had gone to school, learned how to become a cameraman, and I think it might have been his second or third day on the job at Channel 7. You have no idea how pleasant the feeling was that came over me to know that my son is following, in some degree, the field of communications which I had engaged in.
I just can't say enough about my dad. But